2 weeks in a row might be a new personal record. Welcome to the SnapCast podcast, a MTG finance focused podcast with your host Andy. That's the other voice.
Me. That's this guy.
That's that guy. And my name is Brad. And
hey, Brad.
Hey man, long time no see.
Yeah. How's Chinese food?
At some point during this cast, I may have to run away, and you might have to take over the whole thing because there's a little after effect that we call the 30-minute aftermath of the 30-minute buffet. But
and you're holding out better than I did. I'll tell you that. That's why we're starting a little late today.
So welcome to the TMI podcast, where we tell you that we're getting started because Andy had to take a dump.
I pooped in the toilet.
It's better there than probably anywhere else in your apartment, I'm going to guess.
Probably. It's definitely up there. It's probably top 5.
Dinner was great. I am really enjoying this 12-year Redbreast whiskey that was recommended to me. It's an Irish whiskey, and it is a thick one. It's delicious.
And I'm enjoying my Coca-Cola. Remember, Coca-Cola has original taste, and you can get it in low-calorie options, such as Coke Zero has zero sugar.
That's fantastic. I feel fully informed now about something that has absolutely nothing to do with Magic the Gathering.
If you'd like to purchase Coca-Cola, you can do so with our affiliate link right in the description. As you do now, Coca-Cola does not sponsor SnapCast podcast, but we're working on it.
So yeah, we're just trying to speak it into existence. I
can do some more ads. I can do some more ad spots if we need to.
I was just gonna say I'm ready to start I'm ready to shill for our LGS if it means we get free F&Ms. Just putting it out there. Of course, everybody that listens to this podcast pretty much goes to our LGS, so they might get a little offended if that were the case. Like, hey, I listened to your podcast. Can I get a free F&M?
Wait, you guys pay for F&M?
You know what we should do? Maybe we can talk to Sean about doing giveaways where we can give away an F&M.
How do you give away an F&M?
Like a free entry.
Here's an F&M. Enjoy. Yeah, we can talk to him. There's also, I can't spoil anything on the cast, but there's some exciting things happening at Game Citadel. So
Jason Clark
might be some options for some of that stuff, for sure.
Jason Clark says that's no fair in the chat. If we get free F&Ms just for bullshitting about Magic once a week.
Tell you what, no. If anything, I should get free F&M. Just have to deal with Mill.
As a matter of fact, I was consulted earlier today about what decks might or might not be played on Friday because I was so salty about losing to Mill. Actually, I think, and Jason can confirm this, he handled me soundly last Friday at F&M again with Mill, and yeah, it did not feel good. I don't know that I was actually salty. I think I tried to keep it inside a little bit. But I was definitely like, what a demoralizing way to play Magic.
Yeah, I actually kind of miss being the bad guy. Because, like, I used to show up with Twiddle and I'd be like, fuck, I have to play this fucking Twiddlehead again. But, like, no one cares anymore.
Mill was made for Hammer, is what he says. You just reminded me, though, and, this was not on our agenda tonight, but the professor, Tolarian Community College, did just release a video on the Is It Worth It to Buy series that he normally does, where he focused on the new Pioneer precons. And I thought of that because you just mentioned Twiddle. They have the Twiddle deck for Pioneer, basically.
Yeah, no, I mean, super interesting. Like, we as in the Twiddle community were shocked when that happened because it's like Wizards essentially made a combo deck, like as a precon. Like usually they hate combo, so like that was really interesting to see that come through, and the deck's close enough to like actually be playable.
They honestly, they all are. The only one that he griped about, as far as its the smoothness of its playability right out of the box, was the blue white spirits because it was full of tap lands.
Oh yeah, you can't do that.
Like there was no check lands, there were no pathways, there was nothing like that. It was all ETB tap lands.
Probably looking at mostly like Scrylands.
Yeah, I imagine. Now let's see. Pioneer Precon deck lists. I wonder. Pioneer Challenger decks. Why don't we take a little divergent path and take a look at. Oh God, why is that doing that? Okay, let's fix this. And
Oh, that's big me on the screen now.
that's big U.
It's big me. Now it's gone.
Let's see.
Of course, I'm saying things in real time, but like I'm seeing the stream in a delay, so it's probably not matching up at all. Oh no, it did. It came up again, and then it was me. That was great.
So fix OBS because it says, "Oh, let me show the window that has Facebook in it, and not the other window." But here's the Azorius Spirits list, and it's got 2 Glacial Fortress and 4 Temples. So it's not even like it's a boatload of tap lands. I mean, it's got 17 basics. But you are getting a Brazen Borrower, so there is some value in here.
What's Selfless Spirit go for? Is that a money card too? You got a couple spell quellers.
Spell Queller has certainly lost its panache.
Yeah, it's definitely worth dollars though, right? Like
it's definitely worth dollars. Now I'm going to look that one up first, even though you asked about the other card first. Spell Queller is also, I think, coming out in a secret lair soon.
Oh yes, that's right.
So like the Eldritch Moon copies, they're only $350, but there is a cool looking one. We can talk about that in a minute when we get to the secret lair stuff. What was the first card you asked me about though? It was the
Selfless Spirit.
Now here's a card that was reprinted in the list, but is about a $5 card.
Okay. Yeah, so most of your values in that Brazen Borrower then. And then you get a little bit more sprinkled through.
Sprinkled through, yeah. Lotus Field combo. Now here's one that you may have something to say. Does have the full 4 Lotus Field, full 4 Thespian Stage, Alvamaya Coast, which is actually great. Couple of temples, 10 basics.
Yeah, I mean, this is really interesting because it's more built on the old version than it is on a lot of the new stuff. Like the Fae of Wishes plan is a little bit outdated.
That's old tech, yeah.
But it's still fine. Like you can still win with it. The interesting things is the main board is really good. You can definitely upgrade the lands. Like you definitely want some breeding pools in there. You could definitely put some fast lands in there. A blast zone is great. A lumbering falls is great because you're playing Sylvan Scrying. So hitting those 1-offs is awesome. But the sideboard's junk.
Dude, so that was one of the professor's big comments was shifting Ceratops? Like you're gonna switch to aggro post board?
Yeah, and it's just like the omniscience is great, but like why is it alone? Like usually you see if you're gonna go grab omniscience, like the old versions, you'd grab omniscience, and then you'd be able to grab Enter the Infinite, and then you'd be able to grab your Jace that just wins the game, your Thassa's Oracle Jace. But like you just have the omniscience and nothing else. And it's like, what are you? I guess the thought is you get to approach twice, but like it's just ugly. And like the big thing is you really do want an Ugin in your sideboard, especially if you're going this plan. That's not a cheap card. It's a lot better than it used to be before being reprinted, but it's still expensive. Three thought distortions way too many. And it's just awkward. Like it's so little enchantment removal. You have two wilts. Like a void snare, I guess, bounces one. Like it's just it's ugly. There's no verdicts, no like Sweltering Suns is not as good as Anger of the Gods. Like it's just it's weird.
Well, and again, it's a starting point for something that in theory you could pick up and go to your local Pioneer F&M, which ain't happening.
Hey, the main board's great. Like I said, if you're playing this old tech, like you need to fix the sideboard because Fade plays with the sideboard, but like it's pretty darn playable. I was surprised they made the deck that consistent. Usually you see these decks and they're like talk about we're going on to the next deck and you'll see it, but like usually you don't see four ofs. Like
right, and four of rares.
Deck. Like it's pretty darn close. And we go to the next deck and it's all four ofs. Like they did a pretty decent job on these.
Now it's interesting because looking at the next deck, which is the mono red burn list, I see 4 Bomat Courier. Man, that card's good. 4 Soulscar Mage. Man, that card is good. 4 Bone Crusher Giant. Oh. Well, I hope you didn't spec on that card. At least in the Spirits deck, they only printed 1 Brazen Borrower. But 4 Swift Spear.
That's huge.
That's huge.
You're getting your Swift Spear and your Soulscar Mages and your Bone Crusher Giants. Like that. Does that pay for the deck right there? Just those 12 cards? It's got to be close.
It's got to be close.
You get a Chandra Torture Defiance in your sideboard. Like
4 Searing Blood. Oh. I actually think it's cute that they put Roiling Vortex in the sideboard because I think that's a criminally underplayed card.
Yep.
But a good list, and it's worth more than the shelf price, which is about $40 to $45, depending on where you go. I think this is the last deck. Yeah, the Orzhov Auras. Stonecoil Serpent. Again, painfully undervalued card.
Yep.
Sram, undervalued card. Clearly there's some stuff missing here, but this is a powerful deck that will win games, no problem.
Yeah, you got your 4 Ethereal Armors, you got your 4 All That Glitters. Like those are kind of your main cards anyway. There's still definitely room to upgrade it. Don't get me wrong, but you got the cards that win you the games already.
So here's the thing:
you can definitely start playing with this.
Like in this list, and in the Lotus Field deck, right? You get 4 Yavimaya Coast. In the Orzhov deck, you get 4 Caves of Koilos. Why can't we get the blue-white land in the Spirits deck?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, especially even getting like 4 Concealed Courtyards is pretty spicy.
Yeah, 4 fast lands and 4 pain lands. That's pretty epic.
Yeah.
You also get everybody's favorite kitty in the sideboard. It's not showing up when I mouse over it. But Lairs of the Dream Den.
Oh god, yeah, that command not commanders, that companions in this deck actually.
Yeah.
That's not just a sideboard card.
That's not just a sideboard card.
I'm surprised. Like I'm actually really surprised that Wizards decides to do that. Just because like man, I guess they don't admit that companion was a mistake, but like
Oh, they fixed it, though. They fixed it, right?
Yeah, Lairs is still yeah.
Every F&M, that I've been to for the last few weeks, do for always jokes that it's Lairs.format.
Yep.
There are a few people that are not revealing a Lairs at the start of the match, and half of the people that aren't are doing it out of spite. So looking at these decks, though, does sort of lead me into part of the conversation that I was thinking about having tonight, which was something that you mentioned last week, which is opportunity cost. We were talking about a concept, and of course I was like, now I'm a few years out of school and I haven't taken an economics course in a while. And I was trying to come up with that phrase, and you were like, well, it's the opportunity cost. And that's sort of it. Like, with Wizards reprinting constantly, holding on to highly valuable reprintable cards is certainly an opportunity cost. So you remembered the term last week, so I'm going to ask you to define opportunity cost.
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, opportunity cost is it's not a physical cost, but it's a seen cost, or a realized cost by doing something differently than doing something else. For example, and this is the easiest example, if I have $100 bill, and I don't do anything with it, versus I could have put it in the bank. Now, bank's not going to give me a ton. I mean, but I'm going to make a little bit of interest on it by just having it in the bank. Whereas just putting it in my shoebox underneath my bed, the opportunity cost is I lost however many cents I would have made by having it be in the bank. With kind of Magic cards, I mean, with this entire thing, you can talk about more like really expensive cards that maybe you're not playing. And maybe they're not getting more expensive. Maybe they're not going up. Like, we could definitely talk about that $100 bill as well and say, well, maybe I should have bought a Mana Crypt, and then maybe that would have gained a lot of value. But also, like, maybe I'm holding on to a Craterhoof Behemoth. I'm trying to set you up here, Brad.
I feel it. Like, I feel it.
That I'm not really playing that much. And I could, instead of taking, I don't know how much a foil Craterhoof is, I'm sure you can tell me pretty soon. But if I'm not playing that card, yes, I am actually making money on that dollar amount, because the Craterhoof, it's probably going up. Not guaranteed, but probably. But if I can put that money into something else, whether it's Magic or otherwise, then I am losing out on an opportunity cost by just having it sit there in like a train binder or something.
Yeah. So it's funny because Andy just referenced that I did just recently decide, and I talked about it a little bit last cast, that I was going to part with some higher value cards. And one of the cards that I just recently sold was a foil Modern Masters 17 Craterhoof. When I looked at them last week, they were about 135. So I listed it for 120 on Facebook buy sell swap group, and it sold within the hour. I think so. I got 120 for it. I paid about $5 in shipping. So yeah, I lost $20 on retail. I pocketed about $115 for something that I could buy on TCG for $135. In that instance, so one of the ways that I think about opportunity cost is it's all of the things that you can't do based on the choice that you make. So when you say, I could buy a Craterhoof for $120, or I could buy 10, what's a $12 Shockland? You know, for $120, I could either have this Craterhoof or I could have 10 of those Shocklands.
Yep.
That's a choice that I'm making. It's a cost. It doesn't mean that I bought or didn't buy those other lands, but it's the thing that I can't do because of the choice that I made.
And before you continue, I'm sure you're going to go into it anyway, but one of the other things to look at is how liquid your investments are. And
nice.
When you talk about losing your $15, $20 by selling that Craterhoof, well, what you gained was infinite liquidity because you got cash.
Yes.
Cash you can turn into anything anytime you want. A Craterhoof, you might struggle to turn that into the 12 Shocklands that you want because you have to find somebody that wants to make the trade and has those 12 Shocklands.
Right. And then there's all of the functional costs of, selling that Craterhoof, which I actually ended up only making $115 on. And if I have to go through 3 vendors for $12 Shocklands with shipping, that might actually cost me $125. So it's not a perfect balance, but you're absolutely right. The liquidity of Magic cards is one of its inherent values as far as being an economic instrument. If you have a card that's of high value, it's because it's typically of high demand by somebody. It may be a very small group, if you're talking about something as extreme as, say, a Gaia's Cradle or, ultra high-end reserve list cards, graded stuff. It's a much smaller audience, but if you're willing to take a fair price, you can turn just about any Magic card into cash in a day. It's hard to do that with most other collectibles, that sort of thing. So I like that you were talking about the liquidity of it. I was able to, turn all of a whole bunch of my card sales from last week into my $500 deductible for my car. It was 11 Magic cards. I turned 11 Magic cards into a $500 deductible and had enough money left over to buy a nice bottle of whiskey on the recommendation of a friend of mine that owns a major recording studio in the Bangor area. I made that choice because when I started looking at my EDH decks and looking at the high value cards that were in there. So another thing that is opportunity cost, and we sort of talked about this over dinner. I'm not saying this to brag. I realized that I owned 3 Mana Crypts. I own the Double Masters Borderless foil that I got from Jason through wheeling and dealing and trading him a whole bunch of cards. And then I had one that was one of the reprints from Mystery Boosters. And then I had one that was a regular pack from Double Masters. And I thought, Brad, what are you doing with 3 Mana Crypts to play EDH? Number one, should you have 3 EDH decks that are Mana Crypt power level? Like, are they even Mana Crypt power level? Do they use those cards well, or is it just me flexing or whatever? And I'm realizing that I was going to have to take money out of my savings account or out of a stock or something to pay this deductible. It really made me reflect on the opportunity cost of having 3 Mana Crypts in EDH decks, when I could probably sell 2, and all of my friends would be perfectly comfortable with me proxying a Mana Crypt in one of those decks or both of those decks if I needed to. So that way, I own one, I can show it, it's in this deck. Pretty much every EDH playgroup will let you do that. So if I take that as being true, the other 2 Mana Crypts were worth I was selling them for $120 and $125 a piece. That's $245 of opportunity cost that's just wasted in EDH decks because I wanted to flex on them or I wanted to, have the cards and have the pride of saying that I had the actual card in the deck instead of a proxy. That is not a grown-up decision on my part.
Oh, for sure. And I think because we're not here to have a conversation about whether it's okay to proxy an EDH or not. But I think the one thing that will always win me over in that discussion is you sold 2 Mana Crypt, you still have one. Whether you proxy it in a deck or you just say, hey, give me 1 second, I have to move my Mana Crypt from this deck to this deck. It's the same damn thing. You still own the card.
Yeah. And that's it. So realizing that it's socially acceptable and actually maximizing the use of the resources that I have available to me, it was a no-brainer to put those up for sale. I think that if we looked at a lot of our collections in that way, we would find that there are cards that we are holding on to either for sentimentality, because we're afraid that we won't be able to get them again, or because we're afraid of the cost of getting them again. And I want to just use Craterhoof, and this brings this whole point full circle. As an example, I posted those cards last Thursday, the day after last week's podcast. Sold the Craterhoof, sold a bunch of things, whatever. Andy sends me a message today. Hey, did you see the new Secret Lair? Guess what's in Secret Lair Extra Life 2021? You get not one, but 2 Craterhoof Behemoths. You can
tell you what, I'm playing those 2 Craterhoof Behemoths over any other art Craterhoof Behemoth of all time. These are great. And not only is the value there for us, but like this is a good cause. Like I've never bought a Secret Lair. I am all in on this one. Like I have issues with Wizards kind of stealing my money. It was Secret Lairs with their printed demand. I have no problem giving my money to Extra Life.
They do charge a little more for these. Each of these are about $10 more than a regular Secret Lair. But they put the value in there. You get 2 Craterhoofs. You can buy this Secret Lair for $50 in foil and get 2 foil Craterhoofs. The other,
and you get the greatest Muldrifter of all time too.
Okay, let's also look at the greatest Muldrifter.
Like we know the Craterhoof is the value, but like, come on, this Muldrifter is amazing.
One of the other things that I should point out, I really like the flavor text on these.
Yep.
The flavor text on the Craterhoof is, it loves to eat all things crispy, crunchy, and cheddar flavored. On the Muldrifter, it says, be you, be free, live happily. Man, when you get to draw 2 cards. And this card is seeing play in Modern right now.
Oh, yeah.
So, Modern playable, 2 copies of Muldrifter in foil as a throw-in with your 2 copies of Craterhoof Behemoth. I'm going to keep saying foil because mostly the one that I just sold was foil. I sold it for $120. I can turn around and buy this set for $50. Now I own 2 Craterhoof Behemoths and I still have $70 left over. So the full circle part of this conversation is that the opportunity cost of holding onto a Craterhoof that I don't necessarily need was going to put $120 in my pocket. Now I feel like I can go out and buy this Extra Life Secret Lair and end up with 2 plus $70 is absurd. And that always happens with these cards that they can reprint at any point that are super desirable, high money cards. The last one is Metalwork Colossus. And honestly, I think that this might be my favorite art of all of them, which I know is going to astound Andy, but now that I've had a chance to look at them, I think that this Metalwork Colossus is adorable. I think the card is crap. I don't care anything about the card. But the shiny copper bunny face thing.
I've come to save the world.
I've come to save the world. And you see like fire at its feet. Like, I've come to save the world. Are there bodies falling out of its hands and stuff? I don't think it came to save the world.
It tried to. It's doing its best.
Yeah. $39.99 in non-foil, $49.99 in foil.
This is a hard one for me, like, because I'm not a foil guy. But if you tell me I can have 2 Craterhoofs for $40, or I can have 2 foil Craterhoofs for $50, fuck, it's hard to justify getting non-foils.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think now this may sell out like mad, and it may tank the value of Craterhoof for 6 months. I mean, these aren't going to be shipped for 6 months, but when they ship, then it might tank Craterhoof for 6 months. But man, it's so hard to justify holding on to all a lot of these high-end cards that could be reprinted at any point. Like when I talked about the Mana Vault, I talked about the fact that two of the ones that I own were printed in the same recent set. The Double Masters, the boxed out, the borderless and the regular from that, and the list or Mystery Booster Edition. I always want to say it's the list because it has the little Planeswalker symbol in the bottom, but those are actually from Mystery Boosters. So those were printed in the last 2 years. What are the odds they don't print it again? So then your opportunity cost is whatever the price goes down to, you lost in the intervening time. So yeah, if I sell these crypts right now for $240 and they go up, say to $150 a piece. Yeah, you could say that I lost $60. But when they reprint it and they go back down to $80, I look like I gained $60.
Yeah, you only lost $60 if you would have sold it at its peak.
Right. And then what are you doing with the money in the meantime? Okay. For me, I've been specifically talking about a real kind of, I don't want to say adult, but a real obligation, to pay for my car, to get my car repaired. That's an important part of life. Paying bills, keeping my lights on, paying for the oil and stuff. If I have all of my money wrapped up in cards that I'm not actually turning over to make profit on, and I'm not playing them, or I don't need to be playing them, I really need to evaluate those choices. Personally. We were talking about it. I think you have a pretty good modern collection, and you have a good stable now of EDH decks, but I don't think you're sitting on a whole bunch of cards that you're not playing or that aren't for specific decks that you like to go into.
Yeah, well, yeah, and especially when you say the last part, because now I've been very lucky coming back into the game where I very rarely buy a sealed product. I don't have, I'm not the guy that like a new set drops and goes, I need to go get all these expensive cards. Like I buy cards that I want to play in a deck, and then yeah, I might pull that deck apart and it might sit there, but like I always can go back to it. Like I definitely have cards. Like don't get me wrong. Like I have a playset of Force Negations that are not in the deck right now, but I'm happy to have that even if they get reprinted because I know I won't want to play them eventually.
Yeah, and I have to say, Mike and I over the course of this cast and even between you and I, we've talked about there are times where it makes sense to buy a card because it's never going to be cheaper. That is a modern staple that is played in either a deck that you're interested in or just a lot of modern decks. So, say specifically talking about lands, I have a bunch of fetch lands that I'm not playing in decks. I'm not rushing out to sell those because I know that I know that I will play them, right? I'm not playing humans right now because it's not great in the meta, but I'm not rushing out to sell any of the stuff from humans. I even, I had to weigh this out with myself. I had to look deep in my heart and say, Brad, do you need to have these Chalice of the Voids there, buddy? Or would you like to have that $300? That playset of that card would have been easy. That would have pretty much crushed my goal for paying for the car. But I love my Eldrazi decks, specifically Etron. And even though I'm not dragging it to the shop right now, I can't bring myself to sell those cards because I do love playing that deck and they're a mainstay in that deck. So I make this balanced choice. Jason Clark, soaking in all the genius and basking in the audible light. I like that. Is that because I made an audible on selling cards or because you're listening to the light and wisdom of the SnapCast? Audible. I want to make an audible. I want to make an audible to the other secret. Did you have anything else that you wanted to say? here?
No, I mean, I think that's pretty much all I got there. I think the easy transition from that is, what are some cards that, and especially would be talking about Commander here. What are some cards that like I might want to buy for my Commander decks, and kind of should I? This is an awful transition, but I'm trying, man.
You're doing great. It's a good.
I guess
audible.
the thing I would say before going into this is we picked out 5 cards, one of every color, and they're just kind of some EDH staples that like, hey, do we would we like really just say go out and buy this card, or like do you really need it? And a few stipulations. First off, we're talking about casual Commander. We're not talking about CEDH. We're not talking about Modern. We're not talking about like your major competitive constructed formats, because in those ones you kind of have to buy the expensive card. Like you just want the best deck. But like when you're just playing kitchen table, fairly casual Commander, there's a limit here. Like, does this card like do you like justify buying the Mana Crypt at $100? Maybe you want one. Do you need them for all your decks?
Yeah,
kind of that kind of thought.
Absolutely. And one of the things, and I think I actually put it in the episode description, but the other thing is people tend to feel bad if you always win with Craterhoof. People tend to, hate seeing Expropriate and that sort of stuff, so what is going on here? Oh, I resized this window. So is it even in your best interest to put extra effort into having those cards in your decks? Like there's sort of a social well-being to not necessarily having those cards in your deck, but financially, yeah, I don't know. It looks like we've got Leif Erickson in the chat now. Leif, how do you feel about proxies? How do you feel about, do you feel like you have to own multiple copies of a card to have it in multiple decks? Especially when we're talking about something that could be $60, $80, $100. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I give a little side eye to somebody that proxies all of the shock lands in their EDH decks, because at different times they're available, but that might also be my own prejudice. Like there could also be somebody looking at me the same way that's like, why are you going to proxy a Mana Vault?
Yeah, and I've said my piece. I think if you own a card, it's okay to proxy it. And obviously, like, I mean, I even have a deck that I have my one CEDH deck that does have some proxies in it. Or I guess it doesn't have any proxies in it. It has some gold border cards in it. And
it has many gold bordered cards, Andy. Let's be honest.
Well, it has a lot because all my planes are gold bordered. But
all of his basic lands in it.
But like I have a few cards that are cards that I don't own, and they are gold bordered. I felt better doing that because, well, at least it's a real Magic card. I do have one other deck that I have. I mean, it's all uncards, but I also have proxies of all the dual lands and the fetch lands just because you needed to. But in general, my thought is if you own a card, fine. If I don't own a card, I don't really want to proxy it because, well, the way I see it, like that's kind of a deck building restriction, and that's fun to only build with cards I have. And obviously money fixes that too, but like it's kind of like that challenge. But if I own a card, like I think it's totally fine to proxy it. I usually don't. I'll usually be the guy that buys multiple copies, but I would have no problem with anyone else doing that.
And I think so. Leaf did comment in the chat for people that are listening that he does largely agree with us. If it's Lightning Greaves, you should probably have the real card. But if it's an expensive card and you own one, great, proxy the rest. And he even commented that you get the ability to explore new arts if you actually go with a nice proxy, like from a proxy company, or if if you do something with an alternate art version that really looks like a different card, that's cool.
Yeah, and I think I want to say it was you. It might have been somebody else, but really looking at all foil EDH cards, like I know someone had like a Dockside in a deck, and they're like, "Well, I have the entire deck foil. Well, Dockside Extortionist doesn't exist in foil. Even though I own the card, I'm gonna get a proxy in foil because then I can have it foil." I think that's really cool, and I definitely do think if you're gonna have proxies, they got to be at least some decent quality. Like I want to be able to like look at the card, be able to actually read what it does. It shouldn't just be a piece of paper with the name of the card written on it.
Yeah, and from the player's side, especially for EDH players, yes, if you own a Dockside and you want to run it in multiple decks, that's great because if you proxy it for multiple decks, you're saving some of your budget to have multiple decks. If you say, "Oh, well, I'm going to have a copy of this $50 card in 4 decks," and you go to build a 5th deck and you've blown all your budget, that's kind of stinks. That's another interesting comment from Leaf, that if you don't own the card, you might as well proxy the whole deck. Like the whole deck might as well be fake. Which he does with students that want to play in his classrooms and stuff. He prints his own proxies and puts them in front of the real one. And yeah, that's interesting.
And I think that's great. Like at the end of the day, you got to remember that Magic's a game, and especially with people just getting into it, you can't really expect them to put a whole bunch of money in. But if you can still get a way to have them enjoy the game, that's awesome. And I think Leaf does a really good job with that.
And maybe, just maybe, I'm doing a better job adulting if I actually turn some of the cards that I really shouldn't be holding on to, the extra copies of cards that I could just as easily proxy in a EDH deck, and I turn those into, I exploit their liquidity. The only downside to say is putting something like turning a piece of cardboard into a beverage is not actually a great financial decision. As much, although that's a question of quantifying your pleasure and how much you experience and how long pleasure lasts. But yes, I will drink this bottle of Irish whiskey and then it will be gone, and all I will have are the memories if I didn't kill all those brain cells.
I was gonna say if you didn't drink it too fast.
But in the same way, talking about the cards that I sold last week were specifically going towards paying the deductible on my car insurance to get some auto body work done. Yes, in 5 or 10 years, I might not even have this car anymore. But right now, that makes more financial sense, again, than taking money out of my safety net savings account or taking money out of stocks or anything like that, other investments, because I don't need 3 mana crypts. I don't need a foil Craterhoof. And making those choices to say, right now, I can make those liquid, I can make those cash, use this cash for this task. And the universe turns around not even a week later and says, "Hey, Brad, we want to give you 2 foil Craterhoofs for $50. Just, life is good, Andy. Life is good.
I'm with you. So let's move on. We've been on this for a while, and
oh, you want to talk about some of these other commander cards?
Yeah, and definitely I want Jason Leaf, anybody else that's in the chat as well, your opinions on these cards. I picked out one from every color, so we'll just go in Wooburg order. So first card, Brad, question for you. Smothering Tithe cost $30.
Oh.
If you're building a new deck, how badly do you feel like you need to buy that?
Sorry, I'm trying to get some purring on camera. Well, I can tell you right now, Andy, what I'm more likely to do is proxy it because I own one. But It is. It feels really. It feels really bad not to have Smothering Tithe in a white deck that can play it. It's so powerful, and there's nothing else that does what it does.
So worth $30 powerful?
That's a matter of personal budget. It's so if you told me, Brad, you have $100 to build a deck, I might not spend 30 of it on one card. But as I own one, I'm gonna go with the proxy comment.
Okay.
What do you think? What do you think?
So I run 2 of them in decks.
How many decks do you have that could run it?
Technically 3, but 1 EDH that just wouldn't want the effect. And I definitely own both copies. I'm not proxying any. My opinion would be essentially if you're building a deck, power level like 6 to 9,
You got
maybe 7 to 9. You're probably going to want to get one. Less than that, now you're talking $30 might be better somewhere else. But very, very, very strong card.
So this is interesting, and I don't know that you and I have ever really had this conversation. And a lot of people have their own definitions, but a lot of people do use the sort of 1 to 10, 1 being, unplayable garbage and 10 being win on turn 1 most competitive. What do you say makes an EDH deck a 7 versus a 4?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I guess not going 7 and 4. I would say like your 1 to 3 is like your really unplayable decks. You're looking at like, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 or your very synergistic decks that do some cool things, but don't necessarily play the best cards. And then like 7 to 9 are probably you're playing the best cards that you can, but maybe there's not all the infinite combos. Of course, closer to 9, you're playing a lot more infinite combos. You have more consistent ways to find your win conditions. And obviously 10, I mean, we're talking the best of the best. Your CDH.
You're talking about the Men in Black.
Your Men in Black.
Why are we here? Because we're the best of the best. That's interesting. So I definitely, when I think about it, I think about sort of four and lower are decks that are built for fun on a budget, saying, okay, this is the best Kithkin deck I could build for $120, And there are tons of EDH decks out there for $25 and $50 that are quite playable. So I don't want to say that it's all about budget, but I definitely think that there's an inconsistency to the lower tier decks. When I think of 4 to 7, I'm thinking your deck knows what it's about. It's got some good cards in it. It probably has a good mana base, but it doesn't play the same way every time. And then when you get to that 8, 9, and 10, your deck really wants to do the same thing every game. And you're talking about having all the infinite combos or having all of the ways to get it. So like 7, 8, and 9s are loaded with tutors and redundancy, and the deck is going to do whatever the thing is. It's probably a combo or one of 5 artifact combos or one of 5 creature combos in every way possible to get it as soon as possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't think we're too far off there.
No, I don't think so either. I just think it's easier for me to say it's a 1, 2, or a 3 than a 7 or an 8 or a 4. Like, do you fall into one of those sort of 3 broad categories for me? And then it's 100 cards. If for me, if you're in that 4 to 7 range and you have 100 cards, your deck could have a lot of powerful cards and it is not going off.
Yeah.
You know, with an 8, 9, or 10, you're never missing. With a 1, 2, or 3, you might get there sometimes. Exactly. And it maybe is less coherent, and it's usually a fun theme or cards you had or something like that.
Yeah. So on that definition, I'd say like maybe 6 and up. I would definitely want a Smothering Tithe.
I like it. And if not, don't waste your budget on it, man.
Yep.
It's probably not going to make that much of a difference if you have 8 or 9 mana, if you don't have 9 mana of stuff to play. You know, if you get to play your Smothering Tithe on 4, you know, and it goes around the table and it comes back to you, and you have 9 mana and you look in your hand and you've got 3/1/1 Kithkin, it doesn't matter.
Sure. So let's move on to the next one. And of course, today, if this is popular, we can continue in future weeks with a little bit less popular cards, but kind of went with some of the most popular money cards that you'd kind of think about. So blue,
Oof.
Cyclonic Rift at about $27.
Which is actually not bad.
Now, did get the Double Masters reprint. Has also been reprinted in Commander and Modern Masters, where Smothering Tithe has its one print and its promo pack print.
Cyclonic Rift. I just want to see what it's done. And it's on the way up. Even still.
Oh, for sure it's on the way up.
Even still. What?
Yeah, if it didn't get reprinted in Double Masters, I'd say it probably would have been closer to a $40 card by now.
Yeah. The box topper. I actually, in retrospect, don't think that the box topper looks as good as the regular RTR promo.
No, I agree.
I'm growing up, Andy. Very slowly, I'm growing up.
So
another $30
what's your
card.
evaluation of Cyclonic Rift? Like, what's your thoughts on that? Do you buy it? Is there a point where it makes sense? A point where it doesn't make sense? We're talking one of the cards that people say should be banned. It's up there in power level for sure.
It's up there in power level. You know, like Craterhoof, it's another card that people groan when you play it. I honestly, and this is going to be counterintuitive, I think low-powered decks should run Cyclonic Rift and high-powered decks shouldn't. As somebody
I'm gonna ask you to defend that.
Good. I'm hoping that you would. And this is as somebody that has a copy of Cyclonic Rift and probably one of my more powerful decks. If your deck is already pretty well organized and well tuned, and you're not winning the game, oh well, other people get to win sometimes.
That's not a blue mage saying that. I'm telling you that right now.
And you know, I'm not inherently.
Blue mage says if I can't win the game, no one can win this game.
Well, and so that's why people hate Cyclonic Rift, and I get it. I got to play with RJ and those guys last Sunday, and technically I shouldn't have won, but I did. And a large part of it was due to a Cyc Rift overloaded that wasn't countered. And at that table, everybody was playing pretty high-power decks. And when I say I shouldn't have won, somebody that could have killed me said that they were going to let my Mana Vault kill me on my upkeep. or which one's the one you roll a die for?
Mana Vault's is the one that
Yeah.
you'd flip a coin, or if you don't
Yeah.
have a coin, you'd roll a die.
Yeah. So I was at 3, and he's like, I'm gonna let that kill you on your upkeep.
Mana Crypt. Sorry.
Mana Crypt, yeah. And so I shouldn't have won that game. But everybody sort of, even at that table where everybody is very experienced at EDH, everybody had very powerful decks, or like, Cyclonic Rift. Great. Like, no, you just shouldn't. It's the, when you don't have any other out card, that's your out. And you're right. As a blue mage, I should be very happy about that. But for every other color that I love to play, I feel like if somebody has an underpowered deck and they haven't yet had a chance to participate in the game. Now I'm actually getting to my defense portion. You know, somebody that's maybe got mana screwed at the start or mana flooded, and they haven't really done anything all game, and everybody's built up these huge board states. You know, for them to be able to say, okay, Cyclonic Rift might give me a chance to get back in this game. If I can play it on, you know, the last to me, the person to my right's end step, and then untap and put out a board or something as a way to catch back up, I feel like that's a better use case. The other thing that I will say, as somebody that's cast a lot of Cyclonic Rifts in a powerful deck, I get to a point in the game where it's late in the mid game and people are about to try and win. And yeah, this is my Hail Mary. I'm going to stop them from winning. Most of the time, by the time the turn goes around the table, everybody's rebuilt their board again. That's the worst feeling for me ever, is I cast this 7 mana spell and then Dan Brown and Corvold suddenly brings every creature back out of his graveyard and has a full battlefield and has drawn, 5 more cards with Corvold or whatever. And I'm right back where I started. So I don't think that I've actually answered the question or defended my position.
That's all right. We can move on.
But should every EDH player own one? Yes. Is it worth $30? Yes.
So fair. Yeah, and I kind of fundamentally disagree with your concept of low power versus high power and who should run it. While I understand your argument, I think there's high power decks that are just slower. Like you can have a very strong deck that just has a little bit slower of a commander, a little bit slower of a synergy where you want to go to the late game, and well, that is still a catch-up mechanic, and it's not because your deck isn't strong. It's just because they didn't combo super quickly.
Yeah. So for full transparency, I have it in Vial Smasher. That's the only blue EDH deck that I have, is the Grixis deck, and that deck is not a combo deck. It's got a lot of cool, powerful cards in it. Yeah, so I have to live long enough.
Yeah, and that's yeah. The other thing I'll say is, while yeah, if you're running like probably 5 and above, like investing in a Cyclonic Rift is always going to make your deck better. I mean, it will fit into any list that has blue. Even if like you're planning on just casting it on the end step of whoever's turn it is before you, like it always will make your deck better. However, because it's $30, and if you are on a budget, I would say look at it more if you're in mono blue or if you're in like blue green. But if you're running red, black, or white, I think you have a lot more opportunities out there for different cards you can play that get a similar effect, different board wipes.
Oh yeah.
Like blue green, you got there's a new card that destroys all creatures and they make a fractal. Which is like your first like decent board wipe in those colors. Mono blue has like Whelming Wave, has Aetherize, which just hits all the attacking creatures. Like if you're not in the good board wipe colors, I think you kind of need a Cyclonic Rift, or you're gonna feel like you do, just to have an out to
right.
to when things get really bad. Also, like being able to hit it with Spellspeaker is really good. So I definitely would put it up there as this is probably one of the first cards from this list that I would spend $30 on.
And I do like that, and we haven't really talked about it, especially with Smothering Tide. There really isn't a good replacement. For Craterhoof, there are some budget Craterhoof replacements. We didn't really talk about them. We didn't talk about the End-Raised Forerunner or the second God, Ronus God Eternal. Like that, there are sort of budget options for that effect in your deck. Smothering Tithe is a hard one because there isn't a good effect in that deck. As far as Cyclonic Rift goes, there are a bunch of upheavals. So I think you're absolutely right to say if you're in a white deck or a white black deck, run Merciless Eviction or Austere Command. That will deal with most of your problems too. They're sorcery speed, but yeah, if you're in strictly blue, the other thing that I liked as soon as you said blue-green is that blue-green probably turns Cyclonic Rift Overloaded into an early or mid-ish game card.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
In my Grixis deck, I'm playing an overloaded Cyclonic Rift way in the end game. Turn 12 or 13 or something. Where I have the mana and I have it in hand and things are desperate. But a blue-green deck might be able to do that on turn 5 or 6 easily, if not earlier, and really sort of restart the game on turn 4 or 5 even. I like that.
So next color is black.
What do you got for staple in black?
Well, the most known tutor, the highest played tutor. The
Ooh.
demonic one. And obviously this card's been printed 1.5 million times. Now, a lot of the printings are very expensive because it's been printed ever since alpha. So actually, has it been alpha or was it? No, it came out in unlimited actually. No. Yeah, unlimited. I'm just checking to make sure I'm right there. No, there it is in beta. No, there it is in alpha. Okay. Yeah, you get a $1,400 one in alpha.
Talking about Demonic Tutor.
Demonic Tutor. So most of the cheapest ones you can get are around $35.
Has been printed a bunch recently. Was printed in the Mystical Archive.
Yep. And that's actually one of the cheapest ones.
Oh, man. Looking at these on TCG Player, beta $550, alpha $1,426. And then you have Strixhaven, Mystical Archives. You also have the Judge promo, which I really don't like. Excuse me. Now, this is a card, this is interesting to me because as many times as it's been printed, it's always gone way up in value after.
Oh, yeah.
After time. So comparing this to other cards right now, like comparing this to Vampiric Tutor, which is the second most played black card in EDH, I would say right now is a great time to buy a Demonic Tutor. Does every deck run in black if you can. I mean, the difference between this and Diabolic Tutor is ridiculous.
What about Grim Tutor? Kind of sits right in the middle between Diabolic and Demonic.
So I'm looking at the top played cards in EDH. And so for Grim Tutor, you're paying 3 and losing 3 life. versus paying 4. It's all sorcery speed. $15 versus 83 cents.
Yeah, I mean, you were just comparing Demonic Tutor to Diabolic Tutor. I was just saying, like, what about comparing Demonic Tutor to Grim Tutor? Because it's just a closer card.
Right. And so this is a matter of budget consideration purely. I mean, Grim Tutor certainly is better than Diabolic Tutor, even though I still say that Phi Litman is the reason that card has the art that it has on it. Don't tell him I said that. I think I told him that once and he didn't think it was funny. But am I wrong?
I don't know.
Hold on. Look at YouTube. I don't know how bad the delay is now. I just put the art up on.
Yep. No, you're right.
So I do love, again, and we do try to talk about this every week, using different resources, but looking at EDH Rec top cards, total top 100 cards in black. Demonic Tutor, number 1 with a bullet, in 112,227 decks. Look at how fast these drop off. That's in 30% of decks. When you get to Diabolic Tutor, it's only in 12% of decks. Less than half. When you get down to Grim Tutor, 7%. So this is interesting because this sort of tells us, by and large, like when people report their decks online, the choices that they make, and they're saying Grim Tutor is that much worse. I don't get it.
So I definitely think there's some truth there. I also think there's a little bit of recency bias there too. Or not recency bias, that's not the right word, but like there's a little bit of, because Grim Tutor was just printed recently.
Yeah.
Without that printing, Grim Tutor was ridiculously expensive.
That's true. Because before that, it was just Starter?
It was either Starter or Portal. I can't remember. One of those sets that didn't actually exist.
Starter 1999.
Yeah.
And then it was in Core Set 21. So yeah, it only had one printing before that. And this is another one that I think this may be way underpriced in the long term.
Oh, for sure.
Especially, and this doesn't show the alternate art for some reason, which I really like. I actually think that this full border version is beautiful. And this one is even cheaper than the... no, it's not. It's like $3 more than the other version.
So back to the question.
Back to the point of why you bring this up.
Well, just back to the question of what do you think about Demonic Tutor?
What do I think about Demonic Tutor? I think it's good.
Sorry.
That's okay. And again, it's hard to say if, is the question a matter of, is it opportunity cost that you're putting your money in your deck into this? Well, then it's a matter of your budget. If you have a $100 deck and this is a third of your budget, that's just silly. And if you have a $100 deck, what's the thing that you're going to tutor for? Is it going to win the game?
So at what point do you put it in? When does it become worth it? When does it become not worth it?
So probably 5, going off our number system, probably 5 or higher says that your deck is trying to be consistent at what it does. And so say you have a deck that's kind of a sacrifice deck, a Blood Artist-y kind of deck. I'm looking here and I see these main cards. You see Zulaport Cutthroat and Blood Artist, and I think I saw Bastion of Remembrance down here. If you're going for that kind of a deck where you need to have a Blood Artist effect in play for your deck to do what it's going to do, tutors are super valuable. And the cheaper tutor, like a Demonic Tutor or a Vampiric Tutor, means you're going to be able to do it and maybe do something else. If you Diabolic Tutor at sorcery speed, you may not have enough mana to do something else. So, I'm going to say decks, if you're aiming to have your EDH deck a 5 or higher, you probably want the consistency of a Demonic Tutor. And at the price it's at right now, it's probably worth owning one.
Yeah, so my own opinion on that is I would say probably 6 or 7 or better. I'll get into why in a second. However, just as a card to own that not quite a snap this up, but like a card that is definitely going to go up in price until it's printed again. Yeah, I just think owning one is a good idea. What I will say, and I think it's a little hit to Demonic Tutor, is the availability of some other cards. And specifically before I get in, I don't think 4-mana tutors are playable unless you're like probably a 4 or under. I don't think you'd want to run a 4-mana tutor ever. But I think 3 mana is okay. I think there's some other 2-mana tutors that are pretty good. And there's a lot of options. So we talked about Grim Tutor.
Yep.
3 mana, lose 3 life. Beseech the Queen if you're in mono black or can consistently just pay black. That's 3 mana. No loss of life, which I don't really care about loss of life in Commander, but I mean it's a 3-mana tutor. Wishclaw Talisman.
Oh baby.
That's essentially a 3-mana tutor, but also has politics in it as well.
Yep.
And then
wait, because it's a 3-mana tutor. It's a 4-mana tutor that gets you 2 cards. Sometimes. If you're politicking right.
Yeah. And also if you're not just winning the game when you crack it.
Yeah. If you're not playing it alongside Karn the Great Creator.
2 others that also kind of fit in here that also need a little bit of build around. One's Mausoleum Secrets. Very, very cheap card.
Oh, yeah.
Under $2.
That's the Undergrowth one, right?
Undergrowth, yeah. So if you're playing a lot of creatures, because it's search your library for a black cost with CMC equal to the amount of creatures in your graveyard, equal to or less, I should say. So if you're running a deck with a lot of creature, like a creature-based deck, well, now this card's insane. And it's 2 mana.
And it's instant.
It's instant. Like... So a little bit of a build around there, but still incredible. And then the last one is Dark Petition, 5-mana tutor. However, if you have 2 or more instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard, you get black back. So if you're going to cast this and then cast something off of this, it's just in the same turn, it's essentially Demonic Tutor. Just a little bit of a build around. So I think you can go up to like a 7 without a Demonic Tutor because you have these other options that are all very close. However, Demonic Tutor is a very good card.
Well, and the other thing is, one of the things that I think a lot of Magic players struggle with is patience or impatience, in that your deck doesn't necessarily need to be a 7 or an 8 this week. You might have Dark Petition in your 5 or 6 deck right now and be able to play the deck and then aim to get the Demonic Tutor when you get your next paycheck or when you sell some cards that you aren't playing. Leaf is calling you out in the chat.
I'm calling him back out. He said, you're running both, but what is both? We named 5 cards, 5 or 6 different tutors. I think any of like whatever your both is, like I think you can take out Demonic Tutor and replace it with any of the other ones.
I do like Mausoleum Secrets. That's interesting. I wonder if in Vile Smasher, where half of the deck is actually creatures, strangely enough, it might be an interesting thing to consider. But I am running Demonic Tutor and Vampiric Tutor in that deck. But that is my deck that I would probably call a 7 or an 8.
Yep. Grim and Demonic. Okay, yeah. So yeah, Grim and Demonic. I think you're probably running both of them even in 10. But I think you can cut. I think you can cut Demonic for one of the other ones if you need to.
Yeah, if it's either a budget reason or, the other thing is
Obviously Demonic Tutor's better. Like, duh. Sorry, but I think there's options there if you need to.
Yeah. All right, man, we're at an hour and 17 minutes.
Yes.
This has been a long episode.
Yep.
Do we have another color?
We have 2 more colors. And just a heads up, that's why I'm trying to rush you along a little bit.
Why don't we talk about red and green in the next exciting episode?
You want to cut it right here?
I think so. I think I don't have a snap this up. I have a snap sell.
Okay.
Do you have any snap this ups this week?
I do not.
Okay. I want people to really look at their vampires right now and ask yourself the question, are you going to play that vampire? Because Sorin Imperious Bloodlord is spiking through the roof right now on everybody getting ready for the vampire set. So, we got Dalton in the house. He showed up stream all night. That's not what I signed up for. Sorin Imperious Bloodlord, for those that don't remember, is the 3-mana core set 2021 Planeswalker. I say it's spiking like mad. It's like $23 to $25, depending. If you get the... This is funny. There are 3, 4, 5. I'm going to put it on the screen. There are 5 copies of the pre-release left on TCG. The lowest price is $49. The next one is $59. And the highest priced is $64. I will tell you that Cooley and I called this card when it was $10. I can't believe it's $50. I have to seriously consider if I'm selling the 5 copies that I have right now, per our conversation earlier today on opportunity cost. I like this card a lot. I might even I have even thought if Pioneer actually came back to reality that I might want to play the mono black Vampires deck in Pioneer. I don't need to have foil Sorens. I bought them. So this is a snap sell.
So what is normal foil Sorens? Like not the promo.
Foil Sorens are selling for $30. So odd.
Yeah, so if you're getting $20 because there's a date on the card,
get the date.
Just get rid of the date, man.
Get rid of the date and buy one of these. Make $20.
Cut your date, yeah. Like, I'm with you. Like, at $30 for a foil or like $23 for a regular, yeah, I might hold on to them just because. I mean, we're getting a ton of vampires. Obviously, we know that's why it already spiked, but I would not be surprised if Edgar Markov EDH becomes even more popular than it is now. However, at 50 for a promo foil, like that's ridiculous.
And
That's I
there's
wouldn't
just no supply.
touch that. There's no reason to hold on to that.
So, no snap this up this week, but I do think that this is a snap sell. When if you can get out of these for, there's one left at 49 and it jumps to 59. So if I buy this one for 49 and go on Facebook and list all of my copies for $50, they're $10 off. Dalton, that's a good question. Should you hedge your bets and wait to sell your vampires until closer to set release? A couple of things are going to happen. One, when more people realize that this version is unusually high, that more will hit the market. I think more people will start selling them, and I think the price will come down. There's no reason for this version to be $20 to $30 more than a regular pack foil. I think that this is an anomaly that can be exploited. Now, granted, are the $30 pack foils going to be $30 halfway through spoiler season when they've told us what vampires are going to be in? What is it? Not Midnight Hunt. Innistrad Vow.
Crimson Vow.
Crimson Vow. When Crimson Vow spoilers are halfway through and we've actually seen the cool mythic vampire. Yeah, that $30 one might be $50, but I don't think that this one's going to be $70.
It's also a big kind of coin flip too of, are we going to see that ridiculous vampire?
Or does
it just not exist?
There's no doubt that demand for vampires in general will continue to spike.
But is there going to be a super broken one? Like the best werewolf we got was Tovalar, who was very good, but I don't know if it was necessarily the power level that some people wanted or expected.
And maybe there is an interesting lesson to learn there. Everybody that built werewolves in any kind of werewolf deck, they already gave us some werewolves. So like the green 3/3 guy, supply versus demand curve game. Yes, they may very well release a vampire themed precon that comes out with the set that can have reprints of these in non-foil. So the foils might be worth holding on to just in case that's the case. But it's Dalton, I don't think you were here earlier. A whole big portion of our conversation was sort of risk versus reward and opportunity cost, saying, okay, if I can get out of a play set of these for $200, what can I do with that $200? Can I turn that $200 now if I go to look at the reprints from 2X? Or, okay, if I sell my play set of Sorin date stamped cards for $200 and I buy 4 of the Secret Lair Second Life foils that each one has 2 Craterhoofs in it. In a year, are these Sorins going to be worth more than $200, or are my 8 foil Craterhoofs going to be worth more than $200? So there's a chance here to take some profit. Again, I think I said explicitly, Cooley and I called Sorin Imperious Bloodlord back at $10 or $11 in foil. If I can get out of them now at 5 times that, I'm happy. If they go up to 70 next month, am I going to feel bad about the 20 that I lost, or am I going to be happy about the 30 or 40 that I made? I don't know. I feel like I suddenly got defensive. I don't mean to get defensive. I'm more excited than defensive. Sorry, Andy. I see you've backed away slowly from the camera. I think I was yelling.
Oh, no, you're good. I was just taking care of some other stuff.
Taking care of business. Well, this has been an hour and 25-minute episode of the SnapCast podcast. We're going to come back next week. We're going to talk about a few more Primo cards that Commander players love. Maybe talk about if they're worth the price that they're asking, or if there are some better replacements. maybe what kinds of decks or levels of decks Andy and I think they might be worth playing in. Take us out, Andy. Andy, are you over there watching porn?
No, I said bye.
Oh, that was it?
That's it this week. That's all they get.
You suck at this. He really doesn't. He's really very good at this. So, if you like what you heard, come on. Click the like, click the subscribe. If in the in-between weeks you don't want to look at our beautiful faces on YouTube, you can always download the audio from wherever you listen to an audio podcast. We want to thank Leif Erikson, Jason Clark, Dalton Adams, everybody else that was in the chat tonight hanging out with us and commenting. It makes it a lot of fun for us, and we hope to see you all next week on the SnapCast.
Press the thumbs up button. One of you hasn't yet. I'm looking at you.